Hey, hope you're having a good Thursday. I have switched up with Jeremy today. So, all right, it's time to get started. So, all this week we are talking about being disciples and making disciples and what it means to be on mission with God each and every day of our lives. You know, we live in a world that's a lot different than it was even when I was a kid. That sounds like I'm acting like a really old man. Maybe you think I am an old man. I'm 45 this year, this past year, so I kind of feel like an old man sometimes. But you know, I think back to when I was a kid, and I think about my friends and the people I knew, and how church and just being a part of the family of God just seemed like a normal part of life for so many. And we live in a world that's a lot different than that. In a lot of ways, people have it's not a normal part of their life necessarily. It's not necessarily a part that they are going to go to church, or they're going to participate in church or be in worship. It's not even necessarily a part they might even believe in God. That's kind of an optional thing for people these days. And that's not what God calls us to do, of course. And so as believers, we live in a different reality. We live in a different way. And so as we think about what it means to be everyday missionaries, as we think about what it means to make disciples each and every day, as we go into the places where God's put us to make disciples, as we think about what that looks like, we have to think about those who we're trying to reach and think about what they're thinking and what they're seeing. I heard Tim Keller say in a video that he was recording that he talked about that in the Christian faith, it's like we are given a suit that is really too big for us to start with. It's something that we have to grow into. And throughout the rest of our lives as believers, we're growing into the faith and the reality of the justification of what God's done in our lives. It's like it's got plenty of room to grow. You know, God's given us this great abundance of opportunity to just grow in Him. And that's part of being a disciple, following after Jesus, to learn who He is and what He said, and to learn to follow after Him. We've got great room to grow. But Keller says that for the non-believer, the person who doesn't know Jesus Christ, the person who lives in this world and maybe doesn't even believe in God, or they think that this world is all there is, it's like they're living in a suit that is just way too small. And at any given time in their life, either because the reality of what they believe gets challenged and they can't quite reconcile what they're seeing, or because the realities of this life get so hard that it starts to tug and pull, and really it's like that suit starts to rip. It's like the seams start to come apart. And those are the times when a person's heart can be most engaged and most attracted to the reality of who Jesus Christ is and the great beauty of who He is. And we get to live in that. You know, Paul says something similar in Ephesians 4 when he talks about that we no longer live in the old self, but now we live in the new self. Listen to what he says here in Ephesians 4, verse 17. I say this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding. They are alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to their hardness of heart. One of the greatest evangelistic messages we can have is a life that's changed by Jesus Christ. It's a life that no longer walks like the rest of this world walks. That we don't walk in the darkness of being lost, being separated from God, lost and hardened of heart. We don't have that. We have a suit that's way too big for us. We have an abundant life in Christ that is way more than we can ever fully comprehend this side of eternity. He says, but we don't have to be like that. That is not the way that you learned Christ, in verse 20. Assuming that you have heard about Him and you were taught in Him as the truth is in Jesus. See, he's talking about them being discipled, them becoming disciples and followers of Christ. He says, assuming that, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holy. I'm up here on our baptism hallway. The reason I came to this, you can see the robes on this side. This is what people put on before they go to get baptized. One of the changing rooms back there. This hallway is a great place to be on a Sunday morning when you get the chance to baptize someone, to help them proclaim to the world the reality of what God's done in their life, that they are no longer the same, but they have put off the old self and they've put on the new self, that they are made brand new, that the old is gone and the new has come. And baptism is such a great picture of that, of what that looks like. And as we live that out each and every day of our lives, as we walk in the reality of the new self, of what Jesus Christ has made us, we are a living witness. We are a living message of who Jesus is. And when the people around us, when the suits that they're wearing start to rip and the seams start to come apart because this life will do it to them, then they're going to look to us and they're going to come and say, what's the reason for the hope that you have? So as we talk about it this Sunday, as we come together as everyday missionaries, I challenge you to be a part of that and to come hear more how you can be on mission with Jesus Christ each and every day. Have a great one.